The great hall of the alien court was colder than ice, yet the air burned with tension. Hundreds of alien nobles stood in a circle, their silver eyes locked on the young princess standing in the center, chains of gold wrapped around her wrists. Not for strength, but for shame. The queen sat on the high throne, her voice calm but heavy with power. Princess Lyra of the Vera bloodline. You have broken the trust of the crown. You defied orders. You gave aid to the enemy. And for that, the court has decided your fate. The queen's words cut through the silence like a blade. Lyra lifted her chin, her back straight. She expected exile, perhaps even death. But what came next froze her heart. Your punishment is marriage to a human. The hall exploded with whispers. Gasps echoed against the stone walls. Some laughed in disbelief, others frowned in disgust. To the Vera people, humans were primitive, dangerous, unpredictable. For a princess to be given to one it was worse than exile. It was a public humiliation. Lyra's golden eyes flashed with fury. You would bind me to one of them, she spat, her voice trembling with rage. A savage from a dying planet, the queen did not flinch. Yes, and not just any human, a soldier. One who has seen more battles than you have seen sunsets. Will be your husband, and you will live under his rule. Lyra's fingers tightened around the chains. A soldier. A human soldier. The thought made her skin crawl. She had heard stories of their kind. Stubborn, relentless, unyielding. They were the kind who did not kneel, even before kings. How could she be forced to share her life with such a creature? The guards moved forward, their armor gleaming, and opened the side doors. From the shadowed passage, footsteps approached. Slow, heavy, and sure. Every step echoed, making the crowd lean forward. Then he appeared. He was tall for a human, broad-shouldered, his presence filling the room without a word. His hair was dark, his skin weathered from years under alien suns. A faint scar ran across his cheek, disappearing into the stubble along his jaw. His eyes, those strange human eyes, were deep and unreadable. They locked on Lyra, and for the first time in her life, she felt something she could not name. Not fear, not anger, something colder, sharper. He stopped a few paces away from her. The queen spoke again. This is Captain Elias Kane. From this day forward, he is your husband. You will obey him, live with him, and learn from him. If you run, he is allowed to hunt you. If you disobey, he may discipline you under human law. Lyra wanted to scream, to fight, to break the chains and run, but the entire court was watching. They wanted to see her break, to see the proud princess beg for mercy. She would not give them that pleasure. Her voice was low but steady. I will never accept this. The captain's gaze did not waver. His reply was calm, almost quiet, but it carried through the hall. You do not have to accept it, princess. Only have to live it. A shiver ran down her spine. She hated that his voice stayed in her head, that his words felt like a promise instead of a threat. The queen raised her hand, and the court fell silent again. The union will be sealed tomorrow. Until then, you will be placed in the guest quarters under guard. Captain Kane will take you to his home after the ceremony. 2 guards stepped forward to escort her out, but the captain moved first. He took the chain in his hand, his touch firm but not cruel, and began to lead her out of the hall. The crowd parted for them, whispers trailing in their wake. Lyra kept her head high, refusing to look at him. But every step beside him felt heavy, as if the air around him carried some invisible weight. She hated that she noticed the way he walked steady, unhurried, as if nothing could move him unless he allowed it. When they reached the hallway outside, she pulled the chain hard, forcing him to stop. Do not think for a moment that I will be your obedient wife, she hissed. I will not bow to a human. He studied her for a long second. Then a faint, almost mocking smile touched his lips. Then this will be interesting. Quickened. Not from anger, at least that's what she told herself, but from something deeper, something she could not admit. The guards took her away, leaving the captain standing in the corridor. He watched her go without a word, his hands behind his back, his expression unreadable. Back in the hall, the queen's voice still echoed in her mind. Your punishment is marriage to a human. But Lyra felt that, whatever punishment this was meant to be, it was about to become something else entirely. Something dangerous. Something she could not yet understand. And somewhere deep inside, part of her was afraid not of him hurting her, but of him changing her. The next morning, the alien palace woke to a strange sight. Humans rarely stood in the royal court. Yet Captain Elias Kane walked through its grand halls as if he had always belonged there. His dark uniform was plain compared to the jeweled robes of the Vera nobles, but somehow he drew more eyes than their golden silk ever could. Princess Lyra sat in her chamber, staring at the thin morning light spilling through the crystal windows. She had not slept. The idea of a human as her husband burned in her mind like a poison. Marriage was sacred among her people, a bond of pride and power. But this, she thought, was nothing more than a chain disguised as a vow. The door opened without a knock. Elias stepped inside, his boots silent on the polished floor. 2 guards followed, but remained at the door. He stopped a few steps away, his eyes sweeping the room before resting on her. You have 1 hour to prepare, he said, his tone even. The ceremony will not wait for your approval. Her lips curled. You speak as if you command me. Why? Do, he replied simply. There was no arrogance in his voice, only fact. That made it worse. She stood, her long silver hair sliding over her shoulders. You may hold a chain, human, but you will never hold my will. Elias's gaze didn't change. I don't want your will, princess. I want your honesty. I want to know the truth of who you are, beyond the crown, beyond the court. His words unsettled her. Most men wanted her beauty, her title, her wealth. This human. He spoke as if none of that mattered. When the hour passed, the guards led them to the central garden where the ceremony took place. The nobles watched from a ring of white marble columns, their eyes gleaming with curiosity and mockery. A priest recited the vows in both Varan and human tongues. Elias stood still, his broad shoulders straight, while Lyra's hands remained cold in his grip. The moment the final words were spoken, the chain around her wrists was unlocked, replaced by a woven band of silver, a symbol of marriage in Varan tradition. Elias didn't kiss her hand, didn't claim her in front of the court. Instead, he released her and stepped back. The crowd murmured. This was not the way of the Varone males, who would display their claim proudly. His restraint was an insult. To some, a mystery to others. That night, they traveled to his assigned residence on the outer edge of the city, a place far from the grand palace she had always known. The house was simple, built of stone and wood, with warm light glowing from within. She had expected to be locked in some military barrack, yet the rooms were clean, the air smelled of herbs, the bed was soft. Elias showed her the space, without speaking much. This is your room, he said, gesturing to a chamber across from his own. You mean you will not share a room with your wife? She asked sharply, almost daring him. I will share a roof, he said, turning away, but not a room. Until you want me to. His words landed heavier than she expected. She had prepared to resist force, but instead he left her with choice. That choice felt like a trap of its own. In the days that followed, she noticed something strange. He did not shadow her every step, yet she could feel his presence everywhere. When she struggled with the old-fashioned human stove in the kitchen, he quietly lit it for her without a word. When she walked into the courtyard, he was there repairing a fence, his hands steady, his movements sure. When she faced insults from a visiting noble who called her the human's pet, Elias stood beside her, silent but radiating a threat. So sharp, the noble quickly withdrew. She began to wonder. Why did he not try to control her as her own people would have? Why did he treat her like she was neither enemy nor possession? One evening, as the sun dipped below the alien horizon, she caught him watching her from the porch. The light touched the scar on his cheek, the same scar she had noticed in the court. It should have made him look harsh, but somehow it made him real. She looked away quickly, angry at herself for noticing. In her mind, it was still the punishment she had been given, but in her chest, something had begun to shift, something she refused to name. The city's grand arena was alive with noise. Rows of alien nobles filled the stands, their jeweled robes glittering under the twin suns. They had gathered for a friendly exhibition, a traditional combat meant to entertain the court, but everyone knew the real purpose. They wanted to see the human fail. Princess Lyra stood in the royal viewing balcony, her arms folded, eyes fixed on the sand below. She had not been told Elias would be fighting today, yet there he was walking into the arena in simple black combat gear, unarmed. While his opponent carried a curved Varan blade, the opponent was not just any warrior. He was Commander Vesk, a towering veteran whose name carried fear in every corner of the empire. His forearms flexed as he rolled his shoulders, the glint of steel catching the sun. Lyra's stomach tightened. He had told herself she didn't care what happened to Elias. But as the gates closed and the crowd roared, she found her hands gripping the balcony rail. The announcer's voice thundered across the arena. A challenge of Honor Commander Vesk of the Vera versus Captain Elias Kane of Earth. The signal horn blew. Vesk charged forward, his blade flashing in a deadly arc. Elias didn't move until the very last second, then sidestepped, letting the strike cut through empty air. Crowd gasped. Vesk attacked again, faster, slashing high and low with all four arms. Elias blocked with nothing but his forearm guards, twisting his body to deflect each blow. Sand sprayed around their feet as the two men circled. From the balcony, Lyra's pulse quickened. This was not the wild, clumsy fighting she had been taught humans used. Every movement Elias made was precise, almost patient, as if he were reading his opponent's thoughts. Vesk snarled and swung hard for Ilias's head. In one smooth motion, Ilias caught the blade between his guards, twisted, and ripped it from the commander's grip. The weapon clattered to the sand, gasps and shouts filled the arena, but Elias didn't attack. He tossed the blade aside and raised his fists, motioning for Vesk to continue. The message was clear: I don't need your weapon to beat you. Vesk roared in fury and lunged. This time Elias stepped into the strike, his shoulder slamming into the commander's chest. The alien stumbled back, stunned by the human's strength. Before Vesk could recover, Ilias's fist drove into his midsection, then swept his legs from under him. The great commander hit the sand hard. The match was over. The crowd was silent for a breath, then erupted, some in cheers, others in outrage. Elias stood over Vesk, but did not gloat. He offered the defeated commander a hand up. When Vesk refused, Elias simply walked away. Lyra realized her heart was pounding. She told herself it was because she hadn't expected him to win, but deep down, she knew it was more than that. She had never seen such quiet power. When Elias returned to the viewing level, the nobles stepped aside without being asked. He didn't look at them. His eyes found Lyra immediately. "You didn't have to fight him," she said quietly as he passed. He gave a faint smile. "No, but sometimes it's better to let them see for themselves." The way he said it made her wonder, was he talking about the nobles, or was he talking about her? Days passed since the fight in the arena, yet Princess Lyra still saw the moment in her mind, the human standing calm over the fallen commander, offering a hand without a word. It was a sight she could not easily erase. She told herself she was only thinking of it because it had shocked the court. But that was not the whole truth. Something about his composure, his refusal to humiliate an enemy, lingered like a shadow in her thoughts. At his home, life was nothing like the palace. There were no servants rushing to meet her needs, no silken halls echoing her footsteps. Elias moved through his days with quiet routine, repairing tools, tending the garden, cooking his own meals. Lyra found herself watching him when she thought he wouldn't notice. One morning, she stepped into the kitchen to find him slicing fruit with a small, worn blade. It was not Varan steel, but human-made, its handle scratched and old. "Why do you use that when the palace could give you better?" she asked. He glanced at the knife, then at her. "It was my mother's. Good enough for her, good enough for me." His answer was simple, but it stayed with her. No Varan noble would ever keep such a thing, and he valued it above all the perfect tools he could have in the market. She saw his shadow beside hers when other nobles passed. A whisper of human's wife drifted from a group nearby. Before she could turn and answer, Elias stepped closer, his presence alone enough to silence them. He didn't even look at them. He just kept walking, as if their words meant nothing. That night she couldn't sleep. From her balcony, she saw him outside, sitting in the courtyard with a small fire glowing at his side. He was sharpening the same old knife, his eyes lost in thought. "Why do you not speak back to those who insult you?" she asked from above. He didn't look up. "Because their words don't change who I am." She stood there for a moment, caught off guard by the calm in his tone. In the palace, pride was defended with sharp words and sharper blades. He defended his pride by not letting it be touched at all. The next evening, as the sky turned gold, she overheard him in the courtyard, speaking to a visiting soldier. The soldier made a half-joking remark about Varen women, but Elias's reply was firm. "Careful with your words, my wife is one of them." Her chest tightened. He had not said it for her to hear. He had not said it for praise. He had said it because it was true. When he came inside, their eyes met briefly. Neither spoke. Yet the silence between them felt different nows, like a wall, or like a space waiting to be crossed. And though she still told herself she had no intention of accepting him, Lyra could no longer pretend she didn't want to understand him. The night was quiet, almost too quiet. A pale moonlight spilled across the courtyard, painting silver shapes on the stone floor. Princess Lyra sat by her window, thinking of the strange changes in her life. She did not hear the danger until it was already close, a faint scrape like claws on stone. A shadow moved across the wall outside. Before she could rise, the glass shattered inward. 3 masked figures leaped into the room, their blades glinting. Lyra's voice caught in her throat. She recognized the style of their armor Varen rebels. Enemies of the crown, enemies of her family. One grabbed her arm. "Come quietly, princess, and you will live to see the fall of your human," she twisted, fighting back, but the grip was iron strong. Then the door burst open. Elias filled the frame, eyes locked on the intruders, a storm in human form. He didn't speak. He moved. The first rebel charged, blade raised. Elias caught the wrist mid-swing, twisting until bone cracked, then slammed the attacker into the wall. The second came from behind, but Elias turned, his forearm knocking the weapon aside before driving his fist into the rebel's chest. The third still held.
Ow.
Lyra. She felt the blade press against her throat, but in the next instant, Elias was there. His arm hooked around the rebel's neck, pulling him back. The weapon clattered to the floor, and Lyra stumbled free. But Elias didn't stop. He drove the attacker to the ground, his body shielding hers completely. She realized he had put himself between her and every danger in that room without hesitation. When the rebels fled into the night, leaving blood on the floor and bruises. On their pride, Elias stayed crouched in front of her, checking for wounds. "Are you hurt?" His voice was low, steady, but she saw the tightness in his jaw. She shook her head, but her hands trembled. You took the blade for me." He glanced at his side where a shallow cut bled through his shirt. "Better me than you," Lyra reached for the fabric, pressing it to slow the bleeding. Her chest felt tight, but not from fear. It was something far more dangerous and ache she could not name. That night she refused to let the palace guards tend to him. She cleaned the wound herself, sitting close as he tried to brush it off. "You didn't have to do that," she said quietly. His eyes met hers, steady as stone. "Yes, I did." "What?" "You are mine to protect, princess." Something inside her broke at those words, not because they sounded like ownership, but because they felt like a vow, and she believed him. She lay awake long after he slept, watching the rise and fall of his breath. The rebels had failed to take her, but they had taken something else, the last wall she had between herself and the human she had once sworn to hate. The morning after the attack was heavy with silence. The rebels were gone, but their presence still clung to the air like smoke. Lyra moved through the house with restless steps, her thoughts tangled. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Elias. Throwing himself between her and the blade, she found him outside, working on the damaged gate. His shirt was rolled at the sleeves, the bandage on his side fresh. He didn't look up as she approached. "You should be resting," she said. He drove another nail into the wood. I don't like waiting for danger to come back. Better to be ready. She stood there for a moment, watching his hands. Strong, sure, yet careful like he could break the world, but chose not to. Finally she spoke, her voice low. Why? Why would you risk yourself for me? You don't even like me. He stopped, setting the hammer down. When his eyes met hers, there was no hesitation. Because you are mine, princess, and I protect what's mine. Her heart thudded. She had expected arrogance, maybe even mockery. But the words were simple, and they cut straight through her defenses. You think I belong to you? She said, trying to keep her voice sharp. No, he said, stepping closer. I think we belong to each other. You just haven't decided if you want that yet. She couldn't. His nearness felt different now, like a threat, but like a pull she couldn't escape. I don't understand you, she whispered. You don't have to. Just know I'm not here to chain you. I'm here to stand with you, even if the whole world is against you. The words lodged deep in her chest. No one in her life had ever said that, not the court, not her own family. Before she could answer, he brushed past her, heading inside. She stood frozen in the courtyard. The warmth of his presence still wrapped around her. That night, for the first time, she laughed at something he said over dinner. It was small, unplanned, but it felt like the start of something neither of them could stop. And when she went to bed, she found herself wondering not how to escape him, but how much longer she could keep her feelings hidden. The attack came at dawn. A deep horn echoed through the streets, followed by the sound of boots on stone. Lyra jolted awake to shouts outside the house. When she stepped to the window, her blood ran cold. Dozens of armed rebels were surrounding them. Elias was already in the courtyard, pulling on his jacket, checking his rifle. His voice was calm but firm. Stay inside, princess. She shook her head, already reaching for the short blade he had given her days ago. No, I fight with you. Their eyes met, and for the first time, he didn't argue, just nodded once. The rebels stormed the gate. Elias moved like a force of nature, firing with deadly precision, then switching to hand. When they closed in, Lyra fought at his side, her strikes fast and sharp, the training of her people mixing with the stubborn will she had learned from him. The rebels were skilled, but they were not prepared for a human and a Varan princess fighting as one. She covered his back. He shielded hers. Every time she stumbled, his hand found her, steady and sure. Every time he was surrounded, her blade cut a path to him. When the last rebel fell and the silence returned, they stood in the courtyard, breathing hard, sweat and dust clinging to their skin. Around them, the bodies of their enemies lay scattered, the gate broken but still standing. Elias turned to her. You fought well. She met his gaze, her chest rising and falling. You made me fight like this. The weight of the moment pressed. Around them, she stepped closer, her voice quiet. They said this marriage was punishment. But it gave me something no crown ever did. His eyes softened. And what's that? She held his gaze. Someone who would bleed for me and someone I would bleed for. The words hung in the air, heavy and true. He reached out, and for the first time, she didn't pull away. Her hand slipped into his, not as prisoner to jailer, but as equal to equal. The city guards finally arrived, too late to join the fight. From the walls, the watching nobles saw the human and the princess standing together, united. Whispers spread fast. This was no punishment anymore. As the twin suns rose over the battered courtyard, Lyra knew the truth. She had not just survived. Her sentence, she had found something deeper than duty, deeper than pride. And as Elias's hand tightened around hers, she realized she would never let it go.